Number 59274 is a radiator electric fan assembly. So that's going to include this dual row 1-inch radiator. It's all hand welded, and it's going to come with the electric fan pre-mounted from the factory. This dual electric fan assembly here was going to move up to 6,500 cubic feet per minute. Also has the variable speed controller mounted that's going to operate the fan between 160 and 240 degrees wherever you set that engine temp out. Also has a couple of circuit breakers, so in case you have trouble with one fan, you still have another fan that would be operational. Now, as an option, we also have the transmission oil cooler out here if you've got the automatic transmission. It's important to keep your safety first whenever you're working on the vehicles. So first thing we need to do is disconnect the battery. This vehicle has 2 batteries, so I'm going to disconnect the negative on both sides here, and then I can drain my radiator fluid. Fortunately, this radiator does have a pepcock valve on it, so I can get to that from the driver's side down below. We're going to need to take off the top radiator brackets here. We've got 4 bolts that'll do that, as well as take out these 4 trees that are holding this plastic panel together so that we can pull that back and get better access into here so we can remove this plug. We need to remove this battery cable here so it'll give us the flexibility of adjusting this radiator for installation later. So there's a clip right here that's going to come off. I'm going to pop off these 3, and then there's another clip on the other side that needs to come out. Next, we need to detach the upper radiator hose. You see I've taken a zip tie in here, so I'm just going to loop the hose into there. I've got a rag I'm going to put into the top to make sure it doesn't leak on me. And I've also got a hose for the expansion tank. I'll probably just put that in here to keep it out of the way. Okay, we need to detach the lower radiator hose, but there's a different clamp that's on this hose that I want to tell you about. On the driver's side, and it's by the power steering box. It's a plastic ring that's going over the outlet hose, but it does have a tree connecting it to the fan shroud. So we have to pop out those 2 bolts on that plastic ring before we can remove the shroud. We do need to remove both of these shrouds, but we're not going to be able to get to this rear shroud until we remove the clutch assembly. So we're starting with this front shroud here. There's 2 bolts right here that need to come off so that we can pull that out. I think Ford had some fun with this one, so you might want to grab a friend. You can do it by yourself, but I'm going to tell you it's easier if you got somebody helping you with the flap down below. There is a rubber flap on the bottom of the shroud. It's from about 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and it's sitting at a 45-degree angle. So I've got Brett pushing that back out of the way so that I can pull up this fan shroud. Okay. Next, we're going to disconnect the plug that's for the OE fan clutch. You can see here's the receiver right here, and your kit does come with an emulator from us for the electric fan. Next, we're going to remove the rear shroud. There's 4 bolts holding this together, and they are difficult to get to. You got to go in between the clutch fan blades to get to it. I've got a 15mm here. It's about 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock at the top, about 5 and 7 at the bottom. So I got to get this in here first, and then I'll attach my ratchet. We do have our rear shroud loose in here, but now we got to get to the bolt on our clutch. So in order to do that, you're going to keep the friend with you, and honestly, it does come in handy if your friend is a little taller than I am. So he's got the bar sitting here in the slot of the pulley, and then I have this BFW in order to get to that bolt. I'm going to do it counterclockwise, and it's pretty tight, so you're really going to have to wrench down on it. Once I loosen the nut on the pulley, then I can use the clutch fan to get it all the way off. I do that by spinning it counterclockwise. So once I've got the nut all the way off, then this entire shroud and clutch fan assembly can be taken out. This is what's going to get removed for our installation. So I've got the fan shroud, the clutch fan, and the clutch. This thing weighs about 25 to 30 pounds, so this is why it's truly a performance upgrade. By taking this off of my engine so I don't have to drive it with the water pump, I can cool it with the electric fan. I'll get cooler AC output, I'll also get better fuel economy, and I'll feel the torque. Okay, your OE radiator is just sitting on 2 rubber mounts at the bottom, so as long as you lift straight up, it should come right on out. Your kit includes 3 of these clamps so you can loom the wiring and keep it nice and tight. Next, I want to install the probe into my radiator fins by the inlet hose. In order to do that, I'm going to need to take these brackets off so I can get to the right location. Just the 2 bolts here, and this is just screwed on. It's a T-bolt that you can take back off. So I don't want to put this right next to the side tank right here, so I'm going to choose the second row, and I'm going to use the Phillips to create a gap in the fins without tearing the core so I can position that probe. Now I'm reinstalling this bracket. I want to make sure I tighten this down. There's a couple flat spots that are provided. Okay. I'm not going to reuse these to secure the cable for the battery. I'm actually going to use the Flex-a-Fit channel here with a T-bolt and a clamp to do that. So go ahead and slide 3 of these into that channel. And then your clamp goes over to secure that cable. I'm not going to tighten it yet, I'm just positioning it because I need to put the top radiator bracket on. It's got this rubber bushing here so that I put that, because this needs to slip under the cable here. So I'm going to mount it first and then I'll tighten up these. I'm going to cut away this. This is going away. Okay, I'm finished tightening down my brackets. I've also put on the clamps to secure the cable. Next thing I do is secure this panel here. The next steps are to mount the auxiliary transmission oil cooler if you've got the automatic transmission. And then I've got the lower radiator hose that needs to be attached. There are 2 holes in the fan shroud for the tree that comes to mount that radiator hose, the lower. The upper radiator hose, of course, is getting reattached, as well as the hose for the expansion tank. And I'm going to replenish my coolant fluids through the expansion tank. Okay, let's go over some things about the wiring. This green wire is for my air conditioning. You're going to have 2 wires that come from the air conditioning unit. One is positive and negative. You want to find the positive. You can do that by using a test light and turning the air conditioning on. I've got the positive and negative going to the spare battery for a diesel application. That's the preferred location for that connection. You don't want to go to a starter or anywhere else for that. And we've also got the smaller red wire that's going to the fuse panel. We've connected this one to the radio terminal. You can also use other terminals. I would suggest staying away from the windshield wipers. Any safety devices are not recommended either. Next, we're going to want to reinstall the upper and lower radiator hose, replenish the cooling system fluid, as well as our expansion tank line right here. Okay, I've mounted my emulator with a bracket up here. Then I'm going to reattach the OE plug to the emulator plug that we've provided here. Before we get this started, I always recommend that you add some Flex-a-Chill into the system. This protects the aluminum in your entire system. It also prevents calcium, magnesium from scaling up and clogging up your system. So once I get that in there, I can go ahead and get the engine started, and then I can dial in my temp sensor for where I want the fan to come on, and then your installation's complete.